Steve Jobs is remembered as one of the most influential innovators of the modern era, a man whose ideas reshaped technology, entertainment, and the way people interact with the world. As the co-founder of Apple Inc., Jobs helped usher in the personal computer revolution and later transformed industries ranging from music and film to mobile phones and digital publishing. His life story is one of creativity, ambition, failure, redemption, and relentless pursuit of excellence. Early life and adoption. Steve Jobs was born on February 24, 1955, in San Francisco, California. Shortly after his birth, he was adopted by Paul and Clara Jobs, a working-class couple who raised him in Mountain View, California, an area that would later become known as Silicon Valley. Although Jobs always knew he was adopted, he never considered his adoptive parents anything less than his real family. Paul Jobs, a mechanic and carpenter, introduced young Steve to electronics by teaching him how to work with tools and build things by hand. This early exposure to craftsmanship would later influence Jobs' obsession with design and attention to detail. As a child, Jobs was intelligent but often bored in school. He was known for being mischievous and challenging authority, traits that would follow him throughout his life. Despite this, he showed an early aptitude for technology and creativity, particularly electronics and design. Education and early influences. Jobs attended Homestead High School in Cupertino, where he met Steve Wozniak, a brilliant engineer who shared his passion for electronics. The two bonded over technology, pranks, and a shared belief that computers could empower individuals. Their friendship would become one of the most significant partnerships in the history of technology. After graduating from high school, Jobs enrolled at Reed College in Portland, Oregon. However, he dropped out after just one semester, feeling that formal education was not worth the cost. Despite dropping out, Jobs continued to attend classes that interested him, including a calligraphy course. Years later, he credited this class with inspiring the typography and elegant fonts that distinguished Apple computers from their competitors. In the early 1970s, Jobs traveled to India in search of spiritual enlightenment, influenced by Eastern philosophy and Zen Buddhism. These experiences shaped his minimalist aesthetic and belief in focus and simplicity, principles that would later define Apple's products. Founding Apple. In 1976, at just 21 years old, Steve Jobs co-founded Apple Computer with Steve Wozniak and Ronald Wayne. Working out of the Jobs family garage, the team built their first product, the Apple I, a simple personal computer designed primarily for hobbyists. Unlike most computers of the time, the Apple I came fully assembled, making it more accessible to everyday users. The real breakthrough came in 1977 with the Apple II, one of the first mass-market personal computers. It was user-friendly, visually appealing, and successful beyond expectations. Apple quickly became a major player in the growing computer industry, and Jobs, still in his early 20s, became a multimillionaire. Vision, leadership, and the Macintosh. As Apple grew, Jobs emerged as a charismatic but demanding leader. He had a clear vision of what technology should be: intuitive, beautifully designed, and centered on the user experience. However, his management style was often described as intense, confrontational, and perfectionist. Jobs pushed his teams relentlessly, sometimes straining relationships, but he also inspired extraordinary loyalty and creativity. In 1984, Apple introduced the Macintosh, a revolutionary computer featuring a graphical user interface and a mouse, making computers accessible to non-technical users. The Macintosh launch was accompanied by one of the most famous television commercials of all time, aired during the Super Bowl, which positioned Apple as a rebellious challenger to the status quo. Despite its innovation, the Macintosh struggled initially due to high cost and internal conflicts within Apple. Jobs' difficult relationship with Apple's board of directors and then CEO John Sculley ultimately led to a dramatic turning point. Leaving Apple. In 1985, Steve Jobs was forced out of the company he had co-founded. At just 30 years old, he found himself without a role at Apple, a devastating blow both personally and professionally. Many believed his career was over. However, Jobs later described this period as one of the most creative of his life. Freed from the responsibilities of Apple, he was able to explore new ideas and rebuild himself as a leader. Next and Pixar. After leaving Apple, Jobs founded a new computer company called Next. While Next computers were technologically advanced and beautifully designed, they were expensive and achieved limited commercial success. However, the software developed at Next would later become the foundation for Apple's modern operating systems, including macOS and iOS. Around the same time, Jobs purchased a small animation studio from filmmaker George Lucas. He renamed it Pixar Animation Studios. Initially struggling financially, Pixar eventually found success through a partnership with Disney. In 1995, Pixar released Toy Story, the world's first fully computer-animated feature film. The movie was a massive success and revolutionized the animation industry. Pixar went on to produce a string of critically acclaimed films, including Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, and Up. Jobs' role at Pixar showcased another side of his leadership, his ability to nurture creative talent and blend technology with storytelling. Return to Apple. In 1997, Apple acquired Next, bringing Steve Jobs back to the company he had founded. At the time, Apple was struggling financially and lacked a clear direction. Jobs initially returned as an advisor, but soon became interim CEO. Jobs made bold and sometimes controversial decisions. He simplified Apple's product line, ended unprofitable projects, and refocused the company on innovation and design. He also launched the Think Different advertising campaign, celebrating creative rebels and visionaries, a reflection of Jobs' own identity. The iMac and design revolution. In 1998, Apple introduced the iMac, a colorful, all-in-one computer that stood out in a market dominated by beige boxes. The iMac was a commercial success and marked Apple's return to profitability. Its emphasis on design, simplicity, and user experience set a new standard for consumer electronics. Jobs' collaboration with designer Jony Ive played a crucial role in Apple's transformation. Together, they created products that were not only functional but also beautiful, reinforcing Jobs' belief that technology should be at the intersection of art and engineering. Reinventing industries. iPod, iPhone, and iPad. In the early 2000s, Jobs led Apple into new industries. In 2001, the company released the iPod, a sleek digital music player that revolutionized how people listened to music. Paired with iTunes, the iPod changed the music industry by making digital music mainstream and legal. In 2007, Jobs introduced the iPhone, a device that combined a phone, music player, and internet communicator into one touchscreen device. The iPhone fundamentally changed the mobile phone industry and laid the foundation for the modern smartphone era. In 2010, Apple launched the iPad, redefining the tablet market and expanding how people consumed media, worked, and learned. Each of these products reflected Jobs' obsession with simplicity, usability, and end-to-end control of both hardware and software. Leadership style and personality. Steve Jobs was known for his intense personality. He could be inspirational one moment and brutally critical the next. He demanded perfection and often rejected anything that did not meet his high standards. While some criticized his behavior as harsh or unfair, others credited it with pushing teams to achieve what they believed was impossible. Jobs believed in small, focused teams, secrecy, and deep collaboration. He valued intuition as much as data and often trusted his instincts over market research. His famous keynote presentations, known as Stevenotes, became legendary for their simplicity, drama, and storytelling. Health struggles and final years. In 2003, Jobs was diagnosed with a rare form of pancreatic cancer. Although initially treatable, the disease would ultimately claim his life. Over the following years, Jobs continued to lead Apple while undergoing treatment, including a liver transplant in 2009. Despite declining health, Jobs remained deeply involved in Apple's product development. In 2011, he stepped down as CEO, naming Tim Cook as his successor. On October 5, 2011, Steve Jobs passed away at the age of 56. Legacy. Steve Jobs' legacy extends far beyond Apple. He changed how people use technology, how products are designed, and how companies think about innovation. His belief that technology should be intuitive and human-centered influenced countless designers, engineers, and entrepreneurs. Jobs' life story is also a reminder that success is rarely linear. He experienced extraordinary highs and devastating lows, but each setback shaped his vision and resilience. As he famously said in a 2005 Stanford commencement speech, "You can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards." Steve Jobs remains a symbol of creativity, ambition, and the power of believing that individuals can change the world. His story continues to inspire generations to think differently, take risks, and pursue excellence with passion and purpose.